Aoife is a PhD candidate at the Institute for Biomedical Ethics at the University of Basel. Her work in animal research ethics focuses on ethical review practices and the practical implementation of the 3R, specifically culture of care and communication. Her background is in science education, and she holds degrees from Dublin City University and the University of Oxford. The title of Aoife's talk is Importance of Communicating in Fostering Culture of Care.
Thank you for the introduction. As Nicole said, I'm going to talk about the important role that communication has in exacerbating or mitigating compassion fatigue. So, yes, I'm a PhD candidate working at the University of Basel, and we're looking at animal research ethics using qualitative research. So I'm working with a multidisciplinary team researching 3R, its implementation, and ethical dimensions. And the content from this presentation comes from 2 interview studies conducted at our institute. So we use semi-structured qualitative interviews to gain in-depth experiences of people who work within the field of animal experimentation. And my focus was on animal facility staff, including caretakers, technicians, and managers. But I also worked closely with my team who interviewed other stakeholders, including scientists, researchers, animal welfare officers, or regulators. And a common theme in both of the studies was the burden that is placed on staff who work with animals. So we decided to look at depth at some of the reasons behind that burden, and I thought I would share those. I thought it would be helpful. So first of all, we recognize 3 broad types of burdens that were faced by different laboratory animal personnel. So the first would be this empathy-based strain associated with witnessing trauma. So in there would go compassion fatigue and secondary traumatic stress. But there's also other elements like the internal ethical struggle related to lingering thoughts or ruminations about a person's actions or role, and whether they believe those are right or wrong. And then there's also social effects, which can include for some people social isolation or stigmatization, which is a challenge itself, but it can make the other types of burdens that we talked about even more difficult to handle. So I do think it's important to begin by sharing some of the key attributes of many of the participants that we interviewed. I think it's really important to remember this. Many of them formed very strong attachments to animals they worked with, and they felt a deep sense of responsibility towards them. Many of them who were interviewed believed that this is really essential for good quality care. When asked about their motivations, they were very motivated towards providing good care to animals while supporting the advance of science. And many of the scientists that were interviewed did express a reluctance to work with animals in the first place. I thought that this is a nice quote from a young caretaker, and I think it's good to highlight how motivated they are to help animals and scientists, and also how optimistic they are about their role. So she mentions when she sees a hurt mouse, it hurts her. She wants to take care of it as fast as she can, but she really likes that she's doing what she can for the future and helping researchers. So from our results, we identified areas where communication can be a means of addressing root causes of compassion fatigue and these other burdens, and on the other hand, can be a means of support for people who have been affected. So a key challenge was that we identified aspects of working with laboratory animals that are particularly challenging. So killing was seen as difficult, but other aspects might exacerbate this difficulty. When LAP had to kill animals in circumstances that they felt were not justified, or if they felt that they were constrained in some way, or if they just weren't sure about what the best course of action was. So killing is difficult, especially if you have worked with an animal for a long time or you have a strong bond with that animal. If you're required to kill a lot of animals at once, this is particularly difficult, and certain methods can be even more difficult. As I'm sure you're all aware, our participants said they found physical methods and CO2 as challenging. So here's a nice quote just of a researcher talking about how it's the thing they really don't like doing. I think we're all aware of this by now. Whether or not you like it, you will be attached to these animals, and it is difficult if you have to kill them. I thought this was a nice quote. This person was asked which of the three R's is the most important, and they said replacement. And their reason was because they do not know a single person that loves euthanizing animals for science. And I think it's important that we anchor that this is not something that people want to do, but it is something they feel is part of their role. But where it becomes more difficult are aspects where people do not feel that their work is justified. So many of the people that we interviewed found it difficult to kill animals in certain circumstances, and the big one was if they thought that the animals were being wasted. So they personally did not feel it was justified. So killing animals that were no longer needed or were never used in the first place, especially if these animals are still healthy, is particularly difficult. Added to that, if you have to kill animals in larger numbers than you feel is necessary, if you believe that it's been overbreeding or the stocks have not been managed well, that's particularly difficult as well. Or if little effort has been placed into other options like rehoming or sharing. And communication can help here because better planning of breeding stocks and collaboration can support sharing or can support these other methods. It isn't always possible to rehome or share animals, and that's just the case. But then it is really important to communicate the reasons clearly so that everybody understands why an animal must be killed in a given circumstance. So this was a nice quote from one of the facility managers, this talking about their caretakers, this idea that I've got to breed the mouse, I've got to see it grow up, and I have to kill it for nothing. And another one from a 3-year coordinator, just it's this idea that killing the animal or euthanizing the animal for nothing is difficult. If it's part of the framework, it's justified. But if it's not part of the framework and it's maybe just surplus, it bothers them much more. That they do not feel the justification for killing the animal in those circumstances. Another aspect that is difficult is constrained work, or when there's limited agency in some way. And this was a particular experience for the animal facility staff, but it was in our sample, but also it occurs with the junior scientists. So this could mean that they were not able to intervene if an animal was suffering, or and they had to wait for responses from higher level researchers before they were allowed to intervene. Or they would have had to seek support from others like animal welfare officers. Another issue was supplying feedback and raising concerns and feeling that those things were overlooked, or suggestions for enrichment or refinement. That if you're putting effort in to improve the welfare of the animals in some way and you feel that this has not been taken on board. So inclusive collaboration between the researchers and the animal facility staff can allow for more raising concerns and sharing decision making. And just like with the sharing, there might be reasons why refinements cannot be possible in a certain circumstance. For example, analgesics may not be possible for a certain protocol, but then it is really important that these are discussed and the reasons are made clear so that people understand. So here was an example of a caretaker who deals with the mice every day, and then when there's a concern, the only way that they have to contact their researchers is to send them an email. And when they're waiting for a response, it's very frustrating for them, this idea that they don't realize how bad it is to just let a mouse wait, because the person on the other end of the email might not have seen the email straight away. And that can be a real source of stress and frustration to the people working with these animals. And this is another one from a facility manager who talks about the importance of letting people or allowing the enrichment ideas to be incorporated wherever possible, because if the enrichment is completely neglected, then the people suffer. So the people working with the animals, they don't want to see an animal in an empty cage with nothing to do. They want to know that they're doing everything they can to improve that animal's welfare. And it's important to support them. So I think the last version, part of this where it's extra difficult, was these areas of moral uncertainty, where we're not sure if we're doing the right thing or not. And these can lead to people ruminating for a long time, to wonder, to think about what was the right course of action. Decision making is always challenging, especially around when an animal needs to be killed. But another key issue is staff being required to kill animals or enact procedures when they're not even sure of what the purpose of those experiments are. So a lack of communication can mean that some staff are left in the dark about why an experiment is happening or why certain aspects of protocol are in place. And this can leave them with moral uncertainty, where they might doubt their role in what they're doing. And regular communication can help reduce uncertainty by providing key information to all staff so they understand the role, and it can share the burden of the decision making. And in this quote here, this person is talking about how they would like to know what the studies are supposed to involve, to just give them an idea so they can infer more from what they're looking for, or what kind of trade-offs would be there. But in this example, in this facility, the researchers actually make an effort to present the research protocols to the animal facility staff so that they do understand. And that was really appreciated by the staff, who would like to ask questions about it and like to know more. This quote is talking about making decisions about sacrificing animals. So if there's a conversation about why a certain group of animals needs to be killed at a certain time, then the people that are involved know that it was a good choice. So this idea that I want to be sure that it's a good choice. It's not because you say, okay, I forgot them, I sacrificed them, I don't need them, but that I know the reasons why we did what we were doing. And this communication can also be a means of supporting people who are struggling. So other quotes, I won't spend too long on these ones, but we had three main ideas of what was important in the communication to encourage. So respect and appreciation was very important for how people felt motivated, and their attention to detail, how hard they were willing to work. And the key thing here is including and valuing all types of expertise, the scientific research skills, and also the practical knowledge of animals and the workings of a lab. And that it's important as part of this to acknowledge all contributions properly. Trust was a key one, and it's very interesting that it is bi-directional. Trust promotes transparency, but also reassurance. And it does require a safe environment where people are allowed to raise concerns and speak freely, but also have accountability, and for it to be safe. And rapport was very important. So building these friendly relationships with people to promote trust and respect, and that would allow for emotional support, but it does require effort and time. So I won't read this whole quote, but I think this one was very good for highlighting just how important respect is, and how it can become part of the problem or part of the solution. So I think many of you might recognize this concept of having a facility that's underground. that you cannot go outside very easily. You do not get fresh air in the middle of winter. Those are incredibly long days, and that it can just in general make people feel low or have a lower mood. This can wear at you, but combined with that, if you feel like the people you're working with don't care for your opinion, and they don't care about your efforts to improve the welfare of animals or to produce good work, that this can have a serious detrimental effect on you. And here was another example of a situation where this facility manager felt that the caretakers were not being respected and that it wasn't being appreciated, this emotional labor that they had to do when they killed animals. So this person said, you can kill a lot of mice, have fun, enjoy. And this person said, no, you can come with me and you can watch and you can be part of it, because the understanding of this role was important. But I think it is important as well to look at it just from the other direction as well. So this is an example of a researcher who struggled with feelings of respect from the animal facility staff. So this idea that they felt like they're being policed by the staff, that they weren't trusted by the animal facility staff. And they mentioned a mistake that somebody had made. And then the response to the mistake was an angry email and threats of legal consequences. This idea that this doesn't create a trusting environment either. And there's the risk that in the future, somebody might not be as transparent if they make a mistake. So it's really important. But having spent these 3 years interviewing people in Switzerland, I do think it is only fitting to highlight the great work that has been done to improve culture of care in Switzerland. So in the past 4 years, 3 of the winning projects looked at some aspect of communication. In 2022, it was Dr. Julie Parchet-Pican's project on sharing the purpose of experiments with staff so that they understood their role. And in 2023, it was about communication. It was in the University of Basel, and they focused on communication between research teams to reduce the number of animals bred for experiments. And finally, in 2025, it was the team at Bios Plus who developed flat communication channels to empower all staff to contribute feedback, share ideas, and raise concerns. And I wanted to highlight these because I wanted to show that changes are not only possible, but they are happening, and that we can draw from these examples and keep the momentum going. I had one happier quote that I would finish off, which is that this animal caretaker who felt very, very secure in her team and said, at one time, she felt like she was at her limit, but it's like we're family, we're a team. We discuss when something distresses us, and that helps us a lot. And it just makes things easier. So I want to thank the team at IBMB who contributed to this research, and also the main collaborators of these projects in Switzerland who supported our research.